Imagine finding out that the book you've been reading your whole life has a hidden, older draft buried beneath the ink. Like peeling back the layers of a palimpsest only to realize, wait a minute, Matthew's Gospel didn't always look the way we know it today. Sounds like the plot of National Treasure Vatican Edition, but this isn't fiction. In the dusty depths of the Vatican Library, beneath medieval scribbles and overwritten prayers, scholars uncovered fragments of the Gospel of Matthew written in ancient Syriac, a 6th century translation that predates much of the Bible we hold in our hands today. This forgotten text wasn't meant to be seen, yet here it was, whispering secrets about how the early church read, rewrote, and reshaped Scripture. So, how did a hidden Syriac Gospel end up buried in the Vatican? And more importantly, what does it change about what we thought we knew? If you love uncovering the forgotten pages of history, make sure to subscribe to Infinitia Verity. Hidden truths, lost manuscripts, and untold stories, we dig them all up so you don't have to. To understand why this discovery matters, we need to time travel back not to the Renaissance, but even earlier, to the messy centuries when Christianity was still figuring itself out. The first century gave us the Gospels Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, but the versions weren't instantly locked in. Different churches used different texts, sometimes in different languages. One of the most important of these languages was Syriac, a dialect of Aramaic which was close to the language Jesus himself spoke. By the 2nd and 3rd centuries, Syriac Christianity flourished across the Middle East, stretching from Antioch to Persia, carrying the gospel eastward. But here's the twist. The Bible wasn't just translated into Syriac. Some versions contained slightly different wording, like when Matthew 12:1, instead of saying the disciples plucked grain, the Syriac says they were rubbing heads of grain with their hands. Tiny change? Maybe. But to historians this is gold, because it shows the Bible's text wasn't as fixed as people imagine. Fast forward to the medieval period. Parchment was expensive and monks were practical. If you had an old book you didn't need, you scraped it down and reused it. These recycled manuscripts are called palimpsests. Ironically, in trying to erase the past, they ended up preserving it hidden under layers of new ink. And this is exactly how the hidden Syriac Gospel of Matthew survived. Our story takes us to the Vatican Apostolic Library home, to one of the world's most intimidatingly large book collections, guarded by Swiss guards who looked like they stepped out of a Renaissance comic book. Among its treasures was a manuscript catalogued as Vat. Sir 268. To the naked eye, it looked like just another medieval prayer book, written in the 9th or 10th century. Nothing special. But in the 19th century, scholars noticed faint ghostly writing beneath the visible text. Suspicion, palimpsest. Fast forward to the 21st century, when modern technology, multispectral imaging, the CSI for books technique finally revealed what those hidden lines actually were. And there it was, the Gospel of Matthew in Syriac, dating back to the 6th century. Now, let's be clear, this wasn't a whole shiny gospel like pulling a mint-condition Bible out of a time capsule. It was fragments, faded lines, but those fragments were enough to get biblical scholars buzzing like kids on Christmas morning. Why? Because this wasn't just any Syriac version. It belonged to the old Syriac tradition, which predates the later standardized Peshitta. That meant we were looking at an earlier stage in the transmission of the Gospel, one closer to the source. Take, for example, Matthew 12:1 again. In Greek, the disciples are said to pluck heads of grain. In the Peshitta Syriac, same thing, but in this hidden gospel, they're described as rubbing them with their hands, eating them. A tiny difference? Sure. But for historians, that's like finding an alternate scene in a famous movie. It tells us that in early Christianity, different communities remembered and transmitted the story in slightly different ways. Some changes even carried theological weight. In Matthew 1:16, the Greek text says Joseph was the husband of Mary, of whom was born Jesus. But in one Syriac version, Joseph is described as the father of Jesus. That's not just wordplay that could shift debates about how early Christians understood the virgin birth. Of course, the Vatican manuscript doesn't rewrite Christianity overnight, but it does something almost more important. It reminds us that Scripture was alive, copied, reshaped, and debated in the centuries before canon became concrete. And the image of this secret gospel, hidden under centuries of ink in the Vatican Library, feels almost poetic. The very institution that insists on the unchanging nature of Scripture turned out to be safeguarding one of the best reminders that the Bible has in fact changed. So what happened after scholars uncovered the hidden Syriac Gospel? Biblical studies went into overdrive. Suddenly, researchers had another witness to the old Syriac tradition, joining the handful of surviving manuscripts like the Curetonian Gospels and the Sinaitic palimpsest. Each fragment adds new puzzle pieces to reconstructing how the earliest Christians understood the words of Jesus. For the Church, though, the reaction was more muted. After all, Christianity has lived with textual variations for centuries. The discovery didn't shake theology so much as it enriched history. Still, for historians, linguists, and archaeologists of the book, it was like finding buried treasure. The Vatican itself quietly continued its work of conserving palimpsests, aware that countless other hidden texts may still be waiting under layers of overwritten parchment. Some could be biblical, others might be lost Greek plays, forgotten histories, or unknown letters from antiquity. In the end, the hidden Syriac Gospel of Matthew doesn't rewrite Christianity, but it does rewrite our understanding of how Scripture evolved. It's a reminder that the Bible we know today wasn't born whole, but stitched together over centuries of translation, transmission, and even mistakes. And it also tells a strangely hopeful story, that history has a way of preserving itself even when humans try to erase it. Beneath the ink of forgotten monks and the silence of centuries, the voices of the past are still there, waiting for the right light to bring them back. So the next time you think of the Vatican Library as just a dusty collection of old books, remember, somewhere in those shelves, under layers of ink, might be another hidden gospel, waiting to whisper its secrets. If this hidden gospel fascinated you, just imagine what else is waiting in history's shadows. Subscribe to Infinitia Verity, and join us as we bring the world's lost stories back to light.